name is Tanya Brody. I am one of the co-heads of guests, and my credentials for getting to be the interviewer for this one-on-one is that I'm the one who suggested we bring Chad in.
I have no idea why.
And
I don't like, and I have babies.
Yeah, really. Come on up. We can make this a nice intimate show. Come on, you're allowed. Don't be Minnesotans. Sit in the front row.
No, you make Minnesota too. Okay, I'll come to you.
So basically, the reason
I'm sorry?
Put the chairs in a circle.
Yeah, well, hey, that's what I did with my last one, actually.
The reason I asked you here, Mr. Frey,
Yeah, what's that
is
been around?
actually because of the incredible breadth and depth of work you have done in set design, and I thought it would be a really cool thing for people to be able to see. And if you haven't been over to the art show yet, I strongly recommend you get over there, because we actually have some of Chad's drawings on display.
Product play.
So basically, my job is to sit here and ask you a few questions and let you just go on and on.
And my job is to sit here and answer them unfaithfully and untruthfully.
I
To the best of my ability.
Yeah, to the best of your ability. So my first question is, what drew you to set design?
I am a money whore.
Okay.
No, you think you laugh, that's serious. No. I
But
had,
you started in opera,
I had no other useful skills or abilities. And
so Jacob's Ladder doesn't count as a useful
strangely
skill,
enough,
it's ability.
yeah, that did not get me girls or money or fame. Not that set design has got me either. In all honesty, I got into set design because I loved theater. I really wanted to make movies. They don't do a whole heck of a lot of that in Nebraska or Kansas. I studied theater design. I enjoyed a brief stint, 4 or so years, designing opera and theater, and then I desperately wanted to have something called a savings account. And so I moved to Los Angeles and began working in film and television. Happened to move to Los Angeles kind of in a little golden period in the early to mid-90s, where the studios thought that there was a never-ending money supply coming from DVDs, and they were making gobs and gobs and gobs of film. So when I got to town, I could afford it. And that's kind of what got me started. That and the love of money.
So then I guess because we were going on the money theme,
No, really, that is all of my life. Very mercenary people.
so you do everything freelance, you don't actually work in-house.
That is correct. That's the way that most all of Hollywood works at this point. The studio system where they had talent on staff all the time dissolved kind of in the late 60s, 70s, by the mid-80s, it was really gone completely. And so everyone that works in Hollywood these days doing what I do, or any form of production, we are all freelance.
Okay. So then, are you approached for jobs, or do you bid on jobs? How does that work?
I am a member of the Art Directors Guild, so we work under a contract that, depending on what I'm doing, stipulates minimum rates, minimum wages, working conditions. So it is, originally I had to beat the bushes. I'm crazy for work. Now I'm fortunate in that quite frequently, if I'm available, work comes to find me. And my rates are based and negotiated on industry standards, and because of my particular resume and skill set, I am able to get higher wages as opposed to people. I think it's very nice.
So,
Probably wouldn't be here if I wouldn't be around the burger thing.
that's not necessarily true. I was actually going to ask,
Oh.
earlier you had said that you had done art direction,
Yes,
and now you are just drawing.
yes.
You want to talk a little bit about that arc of your life?
The art of my life.
How you got that going?
Making this a more intimate thing is very important, but do you know what art direction, what the different positions are in Hollywood Art Department? Would you like to know?
Yeah,
Okay.
explain all that to us.
So the hierarchy of an art department in Hollywood and in filmmaking television is you have a production designer, which is one of the 4 key creatives for a film, akin to the director of photography, costume designer. Okay, 5 writers, apparently they're important. The production designer is ultimately, responsible for having kind of the grand overarching vision and, more importantly, dealing with all of the politics at the upper level of making the film. Running the art department, you have art directors. They're essentially managers that are in charge of staffing, budgeting, and making the production designer's grand vision into reality. Nothing knows, make that happen. And then below that, you have kind of the worker bees, which are the illustrators that are taking the concepts and making them into beautiful artwork that sells and gets the studio excited, translates quickly in meetings to other people. This is what we think we're going to do. And then you have, at the same level, set designers that are taking, instead of getting to do the really fun stuff that has nothing to do with gravity or physics or any of that, we actually have to figure out how you make this stuff really happen and people can interact with it. And what size is that cockpit really? And though we generate the actual working drawings. When I made my move to Hollywood out of theater and film, I knew that I was okay with graphic designing. I had no inkling about how to design for film or television, but I could build models. So I would do study models for people, and other more experienced designers would be laying out the sets and doing the stuff for action, those kinds of things, and I would just build models off of their drawings. It gave me the opportunity to both start to understand how Hollywood communicated its thoughts and earn a living while and that was 20 years. So, beginning as a set designer, I worked for several years, straight left within the, like I said, when I hit town, things were very busy. My very first film was delayed. I got in the set designer guild. My very next project took me to ABC, where I was an art director on General Hospital in Port Charles. And in both cases, I had no idea what I was doing. So I panicked a lot, and I would go work during the day and fake it, and then I'd go home at night taking a bunch of other people's drawings and pour over them and really try to figure out what I was doing so that I was not discovered as the fraud that I possibly could have been at that time. So, several years on, after a lot of set design, I was learning enough to be an assistant art director. Then years later, an art director, where I'm the one hiring everybody, scheduling their time, and knowing how to direct a bunch of people. We're kind of getting into the territory now. This is a long story, guys.
That's okay. We've got an hour.
20 years of work. Functioning as an art director, I then still had a lot of learning doing, some good mentors, and then getting kind of directly to your question of, I used to art directing, now I set design again. When I first went to LA, like most people, I had the idea or thought that I would do production design in charge of those of you who have sat in the panels I've done earlier realize that most of what I say is Hollywood is all about money and dollars and not so much about art or anything else. And with that, it means that production design is mostly about scratching the right backs and being politically savvy and very little about real art. By the way, most production design is still the same. As I was seeing what that was and the amount of time that you had to spend with really unsavory people, I didn't want to do that so much. But the whole concept of art direction and really managing large shows and large departments did appeal to me. And that was something I learned real good at. Many years on, I was managing and running very large shows. But the industry is kind of ever changing, and where I used to be able to work well above scale, it was getting to the point that they would only pay a certain amount of money for that position, even though your average work week was over 100 hours, and it was kind of miserable. You never saw your family. And so again, just reassessing life choices and having a small family, I decided that going back to drawing would be a heck of a lot more fun, a lot more lucrative, and I would get to spend my time with my family and doing things like this, because I don't have to be at the show running the department or going to a lunch meeting at 2 a.m. in the morning because the company's shooting at night. So that was a really long-winded answer for art direction.
So what is the biggest production you have worked on?
Budgetarily,
Budgetarily and in terms of the amount of work, and then you separate, I think.
so no, actually that would be the same. So I have done a lot of very large films, very few of which I am proud of, and this would fall into that same category. The biggest budgetarily and stress-related wise was the first G.I. Joe film, where we had the announced budget of 195 million, the projected budget of 115 million, and the final true-in budget somewhere couched around 145, 265 million. 200. So, a lot of money, very, very little time to lay out the show. Normally, for something so big and expensive like that, you have 9, 10 months up to a year or more. In that case, we had 4 months. And halfway into our design process, they yanked the carpet out from us, and we had to start it all over again. So we're really into it. And also, typically, like other films I've done, Jurassic Park 3, other large films of that ilk, typically you are dealing with, throughout the whole course of the film, anywhere between 20 to 35 sets for the whole film. The way that G.I. Joe broke down because of its ambitious nature and script was during the first 5-week production, we had something like 18 sets going at one time, either being designed and construction or being dressed. The next 5-week period, that jumped to 36 sets. The next 5-week period, that jumped to like 52 sets, all going at once. And then it started to go back down to like 48 sets and 36 sets, and ending up with 18 sets on 2 continents. So very truncated time to design and build the show, and an exceptionally large scope of work compared to other films. So that would be the largest and most expensive.
Okay. And then what is the smallest, both budgetarily and in terms of project scale that you've ever done?
The thing that I just finished.
Really?
Yeah, really. I just, last Friday, came off of a project that is starring Jamie Foxx called Sleepless Night that is being shot in Atlanta. And it is one of those things that would be very interesting. It reads like an $85 million film with a 97-day shoot because there's a lot of action and all that stuff. They had budgeted 28 million and really wanted to make it for 18 million, and they're trying to do it in 45 days. So we'll see how that happens. We'll see how that really works. It'll be interesting. So that's probably the smallest feature.
And then, of course, the ultimate question, what has been your favorite project? So you've done some pretty, really vast, spread of stuff that you've done.
Done a range of stuff. You guys have any idea what kind of stuff I've done should go over this list?
I did actually list it in your bio.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh,
So if you have the program,
All right.
it's all right there. It's a lot of it.
And if you guys can ask questions. So my favorite projects tend to not necessarily be, what was the highest profile or that. It tends much more these days to be what kind of people was I working with? How much fun a group was it, or how abusive a group was it? And simply, and this is the one that makes everybody kind of groan and roll their eyes, because it was a really fun group of people, and it was a project that was never, ever, ever taking itself seriously. It was really hard to do a comic book film where everybody is making a very serious film. Not a giant green guy. Come on. My favorite one was actually a little Disney film in 2005 or 4 called Sky High, which was this dorky little thing, but it never took itself seriously. It was always campy, and it was just a lot of fun to do because nobody ever thought we were making a really serious film. High schoolers. So.
Do you ever...
That's, by the way, also the only one that my kids keep watching.
Do you ever end up working with the actors, or do you pretty much do everything before that and say, here's your set?
The vast majority of what we do is advance of the shooting company. The times that I have ended up having a lot of direct interaction with the actors is when I've been involved with larger features and I was the art director in charge of, a complicated set or a complicated section of the film, or dealing a lot with the second unit, and the actors were going to be involved in their own stunt work and things like that. So typically, and by the way, dealing with shooting company and the actors and all that stuff is kind of a nightmare, and your hours are really long, so I like working out in advance of them and not really having to do it. But there are times where it's fun and good. So not as long. Last guy like that, so let's open up.
I would like to open discussion to the floor. I'm sure other questions will come up.
Yes, sir.
How has obviously worked on television, and how has high definition changed set design?
In terms of television?
Yeah, well, on television or digital cinema, on cinema.
From the design end, particularly in the case of television, both digital photography and high-def TV have made it, it used to be with television, you could shoot a lot of stuff when you didn't have large budgets or much time or anything like that. And you could, in a very theatrical way, you could make burlap look like velvet if you needed to. High definition does not let you do that. And of course, a lot of the digital cameras that are out there are becoming so sensitive in low light that they can pick out bad scenery from afar, where you used to be able to just let it fade off into the dark. So it's made us much more meticulous in our finishes and how a set is actually produced.
I'm just curious, how much work does that add for you guys?
From the end of the set designer, not so much, because you're drawing as much detail as you can. From the end of the art director and overseeing construction, finishes, and set decoration, and all of that kind of stuff, it simply means that your attention to detail and the caliber of work has had to increase with the technology.
Do exteriors have this sets?
That, yeah.
What way? Because you're shooting out in the parking lot. Is it moving all the cars around, or what are you actually designing to make it look like the parking lot looks like the parking lot?
Yeah, so to make the parking lot look like the parking lot, first off, if we're going to come in, here are the completely aggravating things about it. Whether you're doing television or film, right now, studios and TV look for money any way they can get it. So I think parking lot full of cars is awesome and easy. Unfortunately, somebody else has an agenda that they're going to try to get money, and they want to do product placement out there. And they want 13 GM cars, and they want 14 blah, that kind of thing. There's also, are we doing a contemporary thing, or is it a period piece? This period, obviously, it's like a bunch of, old living cars, 1970 Chargers, or that kind of whatever period you're doing, get them dressed in. Even if you're doing a contemporary thing, you're still, you're greeting out license plates and making sure that nothing that appears on camera looks real, but it's not real. So nobody can try to track down a tank number that doesn't exist. Everybody's seen the 555 numbers on everything. Now they're actually getting a little more savvy, and productions will go out and they will buy a number or two in New York or in LA, or so you actually get 818 or 212 or whatever. So also, things that may appear good to your eye walking in, because the human eye wants to see 180 degrees. The truth is that your camera's going to see maybe at the light is to 40-degree field. So if you want to impose a nice shot in the frame, we may be coming in and saying, okay, we want to use the front facade of the hotel, but to frame it properly, we're going to narrow down the entrance, and we're going to build a bunch of planter boxes, and we're going to put a bunch of greens there so that it's a nice shot of what the camera's going to see, as opposed to, just a big block facade. So those are the kinds of approaches that we're trying to do.
Let me see, with the budget money, do they tie creative design
instead the art directors and producers, they are two separate budgets. You have a budget for your art department and your labor, and that is separate from the construction budget. There are times where, again, the show that I just finished, there was absolutely no budget for my position. And I was actually hired by construction because they just wanted to get the job done. But typically, they're two separate budgets.
How does the one, especially like, you know, the construction budget going in and, how much influence can that have on the design?
From an art direction in, yes, you do, you're both handed a budget when you start a feature. This is what the producers expect to pay. Our unfortunate job as art directors is to go in, and we're really the kind of first ones, because usually projects have been percolating for years before they even get to the phase of hiring an art department. Our job is to go in and start giving them the realities of what they're looking at, and usually they've been all kind of telling each other rosy and sunshiny stories to be happy about, which is why we're happy. So it's not uncommon to walk in and say, hey, we're going to spend $100,000 on this show. Well, actually, what you have scripted as a breakdown, no, you've got $3 million worth of construction. And then it's, oh no, okay, well, you have choices then. You can rewrite your script, and it can meet your budget, or you can start to modify your budget. And usually everybody wants to be clever. But clever involves making early decisions and committing to them, and nobody in Hollywood ever wants to do that. So I think we'll get into that in the whole CGI panel later on this evening, about the lack of commitment. So they do, so our directors do know what the budget is, and they're trying to design to it. It's very rare that the set designers or illustrators know or care, because a lot of the times, everybody's playing the game of trying to see what the most bang for the buck they can get. So if you go in and tell the guy that's actually designing the set, hey, don't spend any money, well, then you're probably not going to get as big a set. Instead, they want to have you design out as much as you can, and then they'll start to kind of cut it back. So there will be many phases of drawing and layout during the film process.
Have you ever been involved in a movie production where it just shut down for whatever reason?
Oh yeah, a lot of times. Yeah. I've been, I was involved in the very first X-Men, and it was just as we described. We think we want to do this film, they bring us in, we start to do a breakdown and actually get a ways into the design process, and it's just not coming in at the numbers that the studio wanted, and so they shut it down. And it came back up 6 or 8 months later with a different group of people, because we wanted to. On the flip side, I've been on the pickup end of films that, you know, they tried once or twice or 3 times to get it off the ground, and it just happened to be the one that I worked on. The downside of that is every time that, you know, there's a finite pot of money usually, and so every time that something tries to get off the ground, it doesn't, settles back. Well, the next show is saddled with, you've got a $75 million budget, but you've already spent $20 million this first time around. So really, this time you've got $55 million to make, and that's where it's going. That's also why art direction is no fun, and set design is impossible. Because you don't care. You don't have to deal with that. So, yes, ma'am.
Could you talk a little bit about the drawing side of what you do? Were you self-taught? Have you learned in school? And what are you enjoying most about it now?
The drawing.
Yeah.
Working through that, both of my parents were professional artists, so I grew up with that around me, but never it being forced on me, and me not really paying attention to it because I didn't think I was ever going to do it as a career. I studied theater design at university. Of course, I went through a program that was much more interested in, like most art programs, the ethereal and thinking about that as opposed to, hey, here's some actual technical skills that you need. One of the things that I did working through school is I ended up working as a roadie for a lot of traveling shows that would come through the Kansas City area and stuff like that. And many of these, Broadway productions or from the Metropolitan Opera, they're coming in and they've got their packet of drawings in case they have to repair something or that. And a lot of these people, really nice, let me take them home for the night, and I'm freaked out. I can't do this. So at least I realized early on in school I didn't know what I needed to know, and I started to seek those answers elsewhere. And then basically I was fortunate to, as I started working professionally, have some very good mentors who were equally willing to teach. And that's both in when I was in my theatrical career and when I moved out to Los Angeles. And that kind of combined with my eternal fear of being discovered as a fraud was enough to motivate me for the first many years to really study and try to learn.
And practice.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, and what also happens, your average workday is 11 hours, 12 hours. Drawing 11 hours a day, so all those you get a lot of time to practice and do a lot better. And when you have people, you start at a junior level, you're not getting paid as much, and like I said, but you're also not expected to know as much. So you do still have senior designers that are coming and looking over your shoulder. Because when I started, it was much more of a true kind of apprenticeship. That, unfortunately, has kind of dissolved nowadays. So it's becoming more difficult to find competent people today.
You do in engineering, if you design something, you have to worry, or
How to approach it.
decides that it can actually be built the way you drew it?
No, and that's the beauty of what I get to do. I often tell people I have the best job in that I get to sit around, first off, and design stuff that really nobody builds anymore. First, there's the obvious, hey, spaceships and new labs and all of this kind of stuff. That's technology that doesn't exist. We just made it up. But on the flip side, I'm doing a storage thing. I'm doing a medieval castle. I'm doing a Tudor-style mansion or something like that. And this day and age, there are very few people on the planet that can or want to spend their money to build those kinds of monuments anymore. And although what we do is temporary, usually on the show, I've got an incredibly talented plaster shop, so I can draw scroll volumes of whatever I want. These guys are going to make it happen. And likewise, my way of approaching any design is I try to have at least one way that I know we can do it. And there will be some structural engineering things that I may not know, but I know if I can give them enough space for the guys that actually build it, will put the structure in there that happens. Because remember, most of what I do, if we're designing and building a set, the reasons for designing and building it are we're going to pull apart the walls, stick a camera in there, and shoot them. It looks like tricky. I've done houses and things outside that you think it's a normal house. The truth is, it's got a weird steel frame, so we can remove the entire first floor, shoot around, remove the entire second floor, and then put it all back together and it looks like a house. So there are people that are engineering that aspect, and there's a collaboration working back and forth. Hey, you didn't give us enough space, and we've got to do X, Y, and Z. So we go back in and modify the designs and that kind of thing. But I am not responsible for the real part. And as I was kind of mentioning in an earlier panel, I get to draw and conceive and design, and that is fun, but really it's just graphite on paper. And the guys that are really doing the hard part, as far as I'm concerned, are the carpenters that are out on the floor, or the sculptors or whatever, that are actually making my little squiggly drawings into something that looks really cool on camera. So it is very large collaboration.
Would you talk about the difference between theatrical set design, movie, or television set design?
Money.
Okay, thank you. I'm talking about structure. I'm
Structure.
talking about, in terms of build time and
Sure.
detail.
As with anything, with theater, the bigger difference is theater is still one of those mediums that it's accessible to everyone. You can right here, we've got theater happening, and it's on a small and very personal scale where hey, we've got a couple of cardboard boxes and we've cut them out and we've been able to make a set. And all the way up to West End or Broadway productions where you have huge mechanized and mechanical things happening, or go out to Las Vegas and you see Cirque du Soleil and the stages in Verbo or something like like that in themselves are,
Swimming pools.
well, bigger than a swimming pool. A swimming pool that can drain and fill in 12 seconds. I mean, there's some serious
Very
work.
impressive.
So the difference being, theater can be much more experimental. You're also usually dealing with really strict confines. You have an audience that's going to be sitting there. Your show is going to run 50 minutes, 2 hours, however long, and everything that the audience is going to see and experience has to be designed, engineered to fit in that box. Whether it's a traditional fly system and your scenery goes up and away or that kind of stuff, the mechanics of it all have to happen in real time in space. With television, unless it's live television, the differences are, it is typically always a much more expensive and professional production. And if it is again not live television, you may have one soundstage, but all of that stuff doesn't have to happen. Quite frequently, a continuous scene or a scene in the television, it's shot over the course of several hours and with multiple cuts. And just what I described earlier, we moved that wall and put the camera over there and shot this, and we put the wall back in and redressed it and shot everything that way. So it is not an immediate type of thing that you're designing. So those are, it's two different types of approaches and mindset. With that said, right now, my opinion is that a lot of the people that are the most successful film and television designers have actually, at this point, come from a theater background because they have better training for truly understanding light and action and movement, because those are all things you're forced to consider and deal with in live theater, and you're trained to do. Whereas people that come out of the architectural world or things like that, they're being trained to think about space and that kind of stuff, but on a much larger scale, where they don't care if it takes you forever to walk across the lobby because it was a big, cool lobby. Whereas film wants you to have a big, cool lobby, but they don't want your actors to spend 48 seconds walking across it. They need to be over there by the time those 3 lines end. So it's a different type of thing. And everybody can learn it, but that's great. That's also something. Any other questions?
I have one. I didn't have to name your names.
No, let's talk dirt.
How much did you encounter, or does this not happen, maybe, I don't know, situations where design decisions were made by people who really had no gift for
All the time.
for design?
All the time. Literally all the time. And it's usually or power driven. I made a joke earlier about being mercenary, and I am. I was fortunate, again, I talked about my parents being artists. I grew up around some phenomenally talented people. All of them were starving, great artists. And so when I decided to do this, I thought, well, okay, I've got to make a living at it too. The best and healthiest thing for me in that regard is, and I joke, you go to New York to make art because there's a really supportive art community and theater and all that kind of stuff. LA, when they call it show business, that's what they mean. It is business. And so if you can go in with that mindset, this is business, it helps you survive a lot more and not take it, oh, you're crushing my art. It's not art. And we have a very good friend, exceptionally talented illustrator who, he wanted to be a fine artist and did. Came out to LA and kind of fell into it for many years. But every time the studio made a bad decision, the director made a bad decision, it just tore at him and just left the industry, unfortunately. The reason I tell you all of that is, the size of projects that I like to work on, because there is more money and everything like that to build great big sets. When you get into projects that are, a third of a studio's budget for the year, or they're only 10-pole film, that means that every executive at that studio who has to justify his job or existence is looking at and nitpicking and pulling apart on something that really that person shouldn't be dealing with at all. it also means that because the stakes financially are so high, they're bringing in partners that are paying, Mercedes with their car in, or because I mentioned G.I. Joe earlier, Hasbro had a great interest in that film because, well, I don't know if any of you know this, G.I. Joe is second only in sales to Star Wars, as far as billions of dollars of toy. We made the first G.I. Joe right after Transformers came out. It was a surprise smash success for everybody, and they were all salivating over this giant pot of money that they thought was going to happen, and it definitely did. So all of a sudden, everything that we're doing with G.I. Joe, all they're seeing is toys, toy designs, toy this, toy that. That was fine. Where the meddling came in was, the show opens with a giant military convoy. Now, no one but Michael Bay gets Department of Defense cooperation in their films, even though everybody says it. So once again, hey, we're going to get Department of Defense cooperation. That never materialized. We're designing all the vehicles from the ground up. And because of our truncated schedule, we're designing them on top of existing large vehicles, GM trucks, Hasbro gets wind of this. Oh, no, you can't do that because if we base a toy on a GM truck, we have to put GM royalty. So all of a sudden, how was that? And we're now designing from ground up everything. And it's because they wanted toys and they wanted to keep more of their money. So that, it's all business. And particularly when you get to a studio head level, that kind of thing, it is as much about ego and power as it is about money. And that makes for a lot of meddling in a lot of things.
Have you found that it sometimes results in a product
Really
that
poor product?
does not meet their expectations?
Or and again, back to G.I. Joe, yeah, a lot of people, there are several executives that lost their jobs over that film. There are several people who were scapegoated and didn't work for many years. Some of it deserved, some of it not. But yeah, it becomes a very, very high stakes game for that kind of thing. And yeah, there's frequent times that I've watched products suffer from lack of decision. There are other times where you will see, the original script that they're working on is changed or altered, and a lot of times you wouldn't think it's an arbitrary thing, but it's actually because a studio has a specific thing that they want to do that has nothing to do with that film. It's setting up 3 more products that they want to make down the line.
There's an agenda.
Yes,
Yeah.
and Marvel, by the way, is because there's been so much talk about Marvel films and Marvel has a very specific agenda. What they want to do now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and it all ties into it. I was a designer on Ant-Man. I did the first go around with Edgar Wright. I was there for the second go around with Brad Pitt. I was one of the only ones standing in the art department for those 2 months. But what was happening there, Edgar had come in with a very good, very tight script, but he was resistant to and refused to introduce elements that didn't have much to do with Ant-Man, but they had everything to do with Marvel setting up their things for their next films. And what happened with all that, among other things, I obviously was not in the room, but Edgar was very resistant to having those things change. He wanted to do it, and when push came to shove, Marvel was the bigger gorilla in the room. And consequently, the second script that we were doing, it wasn't as tight a story. It wasn't as intimate or as cute. Will you guys know that? No, because you didn't hear the original script. Has Marvel set up all the things that they want to set up for their next 5 films? Yep. So, in that case, Edgar's unfortunate demise was because he just didn't want to play the game at that level. And it's a game.
Have you ever encountered a situation where there is in that management level a champion of the better vision? And
Yeah.
has that been effective? Does this question make sense?
Yes, it does.
The opposite of what we just said.
It does. And my answer to that is going to seem kind of strange or obtuse. With any studio hierarchy, first off, you have people at that level, really what they are is professional politicians and deflectors. And each of them have a series of projects they're really interested in. And there's a finite pot of money at the studio, so this year we're gonna do Vince's project and Charlie's project, and we're not gonna do your project, we're not gonna do your project, and we're not gonna do yours. So what's that leave? And Charlie, you're really, really happy, the three of you are really kind of pissed. Because if theirs go, well, you don't get your bonus, it's helping you pay for your mansion. But, you've got a whole year that you've got to sit there and justify your existence and all of this. So, and I'm greatly simplifying things obviously here, but it means the three of you are kind of in some way working to gently torpedo, or not so gently torpedo, these two projects, maybe to get yours in order, to make the guy look worse, so that next year your project gets up. While at the same time, these two are fighting like hell to get their project done the way that they see it. So yeah, they're always, there's always a champion of sorts, there are always nemesis of sorts, and that is where a lot of meddling is. Part of one of the panels that we were talking yesterday was talking about the decisions the various studios are making, and why don't more people make the smaller and kind of less well-known but much more interesting comics. And the example we were coming up with, okay, why is Warner Brothers doing umpteen billion butchering of Superman or Batman and making it dark and depressing? Who cares? And why is nobody making another beat for that? The studios look at all of the name brand properties as just that, brands that they don't have to market and sell. Everybody knows what Superman is. Everybody knows what Batman is, correct? Nobody really knows outside of the fans what beat for that is, or Sam, things like that. And so what it takes there is the studio wants to spend their big money on something that everybody knows that they don't have to market. And a director or a group of directors is successful repeatedly, and we use V for Vendetta, Wachowski's, hey, Warner Brothers, we just made you bajillions of dollars with Matrix, and our little pet project that we really want to do is V for Vendetta. And Warner Brothers kind of is a pat on the head, says, okay, here's $75 million for it. We don't want it. And then if it comes out, it does great. And if it doesn't, there's your $75 million. That's how those kinds of things are made. What happens with those kinds of things is because the studio has just gone, they don't really care. There's not going to be nearly as much money. It's something that's down there and off the radar. This director's been left to kind of do what they want to do. And that's where two good things happen. One, you've got a smaller budget. You have to make better choices. You have to be clever. You can't just rely on, we're going to fix it all in post, because there's not that money. At the same time, those decisions are easier to make because there's not a lot of people from the studio really stirring the pot all the time and saying, what you doing, what you doing, what you doing? That's wrong. So those projects tend to go along easier and better and tend to come out and be a better product that audiences enjoy. So it's all, again, goes back to the money and how high it's bobbing in the water or how low it is and off the radar as to what all gets to happen.
Is the forward planning of Marvel part of Marvel's background, or is it influenced by Disney's corporate
No,
machine?
it's part of Marvel's background. Is what it's always been their plan. And really, what has happened since Disney bought Marvel is they've left Marvel to run pretty much as it has and as it's planned goes. They're just super happy to distribute the products and make other toys and costumes and everything else. And it is appearing to be very similar with the Star Wars franchise. Disney is just accumulating the most successful properties ever, Pixar, Star Wars, and then let them continue to do what they do and sticking more stuff in their theme parks and enjoying the fact that now Marvel's doing all of their TV stuff, so great, we're going to show that on ABC. Oh, that one's really nasty, we're going to put that on Netflix. That kind of thing. But yeah, and the truth is, here's the funny thing is, everybody, Marvel has had incredibly successful string of films, even the bad ones, people are still going to see them, it's been bajillions of dollars. They're still a really small studio. It's a really core group of people, and they're slated. We're going to do 2 films a year, and that's what they can do. And without sitting in those boardrooms, you know, I think right now they're very happy to keep it that way because the larger it becomes, the more difficult it is to manage. And they really do have a pretty succinct, overarching way they're going to approach their work, their business. Disney does not seem to be doing a lot of stuff.
How many Marvel films have you worked on?
For actual Marvel, I've only done two. Here I can't remember. As far as Marvel products, I've done 4, but you know, they had made deals prior to Marvel Studios existing, so the Ang Lee Hulk for Universal, Hulk was still a Universal property as far as a standalone character, and the X-Men films, which are still a Fox property as standalone. So then Ant-Man and something else, which is not coming to my mind right now, I've done for Marvel and School Marvel. And I would like to have done Guardians of the Galaxy too, but that's not going to do it.
So can you say anything about Ant-Man, or?
It's out in the theaters.
It opens on the 17th.
A couple weeks.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry,
had its-
jumped
had
the
its-
gun a little bit.
Had its premiere. The trick for me, and this happens frequently, is when I'm brought into a project and I get to read the original scripts and I kind of have whatever got me excited and wanting to sign on to it. When that doesn't necessarily happen, or when I'm really not sure what it's going to be in the end, and that's kind of what Ant-Man is. When I signed on to it, it was what got me really excited was, you know, they took me in and this never happens. I met Edgar and they showed me, you know, the test footage that they'd shot and they introduced it to Comic-Con or something a year or so ago. And I'm watching that going, holy cool! This is something I have not seen before. And it was also presenting a lot of, for me, really interesting technical challenges of how do you design for and approach. All of a sudden you've got a shrinking character, and all I'm thinking is, dude, that means he's next to my wallet, and that picture is out of focus. And okay, this is something I haven't encountered before. And so that to me was really, really interesting. Again, when there was a changeover in the script rewrites and essentially the retooling of the whole film, you know what? They left a lot of some of the interesting stuff. They've done away with some of the stuff that I was very interested in, and because I am not knowledgeable, truly, of Marvel Universe or comic books or anything like that, thus I'm not offended, which is also why they keep hiring me, because I don't come in and say, you can't do that to Punisher. I don't care. What do you want me to draw? You know, they're introducing and doing a lot of things that I don't get, I don't understand. Will it make me better? No, you tell me with yourself.
What is it that you're actually working from? I mean, for like the Oz wagon that's in the show, I mean, do they say draw us an Oz wagon, or they want something specific, or is it described in the script somewhere and you're kind of written? So.
Sometimes it's all three. But what is happening more and more these days is I'm typically hired nowadays to figure out the stuff that nobody else has figured out, or wants to figure out, or can't figure it out. So like in the case of the Oz wagons, or maybe just, you know, the project is so big that no one's getting the production designer to focus on something. And so I will, you know, the stuff that's hanging there for the Oz wagon, you know, you'll notice that what those are is they're study sketches. But, you know, even within the same drawing, I've given you an A and a B option. And I'm just throwing out stuff. I've read the script. I know that the wagon needs to do X, Y, and Z, and consequently just to fit that number of humans in, or boats equipped with that kind of thing, they need to have this kind of footprint. And sometimes I'm working off a visual reference or an illustration that I've been given. More often than not, I'm coming up with something from scratch. But again, because my job is to physically put something together that can roll it across a soundstage and be pulled by a horse and not fall apart and kill somebody. You know, I'm also turning around and doing actual research on how do wagons actually physically go together. In the case of Oz, they hired me on that show, and you'll notice next to it is the hearse from Haunted Mansion. They hired me on Oz because they knew I'd done the Hearst Haunted Mansion and figured out how to make a hearse come apart so that you could stick a camera anywhere you wanted to and go down a hallway at 80 miles an hour and stop and not kill somebody. So a lot of times work comes that way too. You just happen to get a assignment on one thing, so forevermore you're the guy who knows how to do that. So that's.
Do they recycle a lot, or do you make these set pieces and they go and they sit in a huge warehouse somewhere until somebody goes, we should probably clean this place up?
Yeah, now of course there used to be every studio had a scene dock, and what has happened more and more, you know, studios, their footprint has gotten smaller and smaller. The number of stages they have has reduced dramatically because they are more than happy to go anywhere that a state is going to give them a tax incentive, or country is going to give them a tax incentive, and that state or country is going to provide them with stage space that they do not have to maintain or renovate. And instead, they sell off their very valuable land in Los Angeles to condo developments. And with that, has gone the scene docks, the prop houses, the hardware departments, and a lot of really very, not only valuable in terms of history, but exceptionally valuable stuff where, you know, if you were doing a medieval mansion, hey, great, we've got a lot of really cool hardware down here that you can go and do 30 castle doors. Nowadays, you can't do that. It's really hard to order that stuff online. So, but they also, you know, so they divested themselves from that kind of overhead, and in many ways divested themselves from that kind of responsibility because they don't care if you can't find it online. They give you a budget to do it in your film, so you figure it out, and we keep doing it.
What happens to all of this stuff?
Well, oh, you went up to. Well, hey, we waste a lot of crap. In the case of television, where you know you have 22 episodes, multiple seasons, you know there you have standing sets, and there you do have wherewithal that companies will still scene dock their scenery, and will at the very least pull out and reuse walls. Maybe not the same configuration that the set originally was, but you're using it to build a new bedroom or something. So television is more responsible than we have. Features, because it is larger budget, it's a more important thing. You know, their sets are essentially proprietary, and at the end of the show, unless you know that it's going to be a multiple year thing, Harry Potter, for example, we know we're going to do 8 films, so they're only 7 books. Yeah, they kept and reused many of their sets, and in fact, if you watch them, you can see where Dumbledore's office also doubles as the observatory, also doubles as something else. They don't do it in the same film, but it's like over the course of things, so they're recycled. Another way that films approach it in a more responsible way is they will shoot, films 2, 3, and 4 simultaneously. That is currently happening with Avatar, happening with the Lord of the Rings films and The Hobbit. So we're going to keep these things. Another instance where you sometimes see it in the original Hulk, we built an entire new backlot street for Universal Studios. There the trick was, the street itself belonged to Universal, and wanting to make money, they were going to be renting it out to other production companies and other commercial companies, and their products would be showing up long before the film, The Hulk, came out. So, in order for our street that we had built for our film to be unique and different, what we ended up doing was going in and heavily modifying houses when we left, so that if an Audi commercial came in and drove their car down the street, it would look very different and not be easily recognizable as, hey, there's Bungalow. So there are those different ways of approaching not being as wasteful on a film. But, I mean, for the most part, yeah, we build and throw away an underdone kind of stuff.
Do you ever keep anything as a souvenir?
No, because I don't want that stuff in my house. I'm giving away as much as I possibly can.
But Hannah gets upset with me.
And it's okay.
We have about 6 minutes left. Does anyone else have any more questions?
My shoe size is 8. No?
We can wrap up a little early. Thank you very much, Chad. This has
Yeah.
been great.
Awesome. Hey, guys. Thanks for